Pfizer launched the first clinical trial in the U.S. studying how the coronavirus vaccine affects pregnant women. The study will include 4,000 women. Globally, those who are between 24 and 34 weeks of pregnancy are eligible to participate. Researchers will monitor each woman for 7 to 10 months. Pfizer also announced it submitted new data to the FDA showing its vaccine can be stored at higher temperatures. Currently, the vials are stored at negative 112 to negative 76 degrees Fahrenheit, but now the company recommends storage at negative 13 to 5 degrees, which is more common in pharmaceutical freezers. Joining us now to talk more about all of this is physician and immunotherapy scientist, Dr. Leo Nissola. Dr. Nissola, welcome. Great to see you again. Now, this is a significant temperature difference. The company is now suggesting to store its vaccine. If the FDA approves the new storage recommendations, could this be a game changer in both U.S. and global vaccination efforts?
Hi, Tanya. Yes, definitely. Both news that you just shared are very good and positive news. We need to get vaccines into hard-to-reach communities. And those new storage guidance will allow us to be able to have those vaccine vials at a safer and more stable situation in places that are hard to reach. So these are positive news and potentially a game changer as well. Great to see also that Pfizer is having those clinical studies for patients that are pregnant. And I'm very excited about that as well.
Yeah, so let's delve into that a little bit more. Pfizer and BioNTech's new study looking at the effect their vaccine has on pregnant women. When we talk about pregnant women, there are a lot of concerns, right? It's not just how the vaccine affects the mother, it's how the vaccine affects the child, right? So is it a little more complicated to study pregnant women?
Well, we need to study them, but let's go back a little bit. In December, mid-December, the American College of OBGYN published an advisory note stating that they are recommending folks that are pregnant and breastfeeding to receive the vaccines, even though we didn't have data to support that. So I'm very happy to see that we are actually taking the steps that we need to ensure that pregnant women are safe and the fetuses are safe by receiving these vaccines. And we can only do that when we test them in clinical trials that are controlled and in the way that the drug makers are doing it right now. So I'm very happy to see these efforts. We should also be looking into information in regards to the safety around these vaccines for children. Dr. Fauci mentioned today that we will see more data coming in on the vaccine safety on some children by that ages 12 and older by fall, and younger kids by Q1 2022. So both are hopeful,
and I want to ask you about the kids.
But it does take time.
Hold that thought, because I do want to ask you about the kids in just a second, but I want to stick with pregnant women for just a moment, because there's a study out of the University of Washington finding the mortality rate among pregnant women with COVID is 13 times higher than other similarly aged patients. If pregnant women are at such a higher risk of severe infection, shouldn't they have been included in the initial testing phase for the vaccine, or did doctors just not know that they were so susceptible?
So what we were trying to do back in the day was to deliver safe and effective vaccines in a speed of sound. But we are building the plane as we fly it. We're in the middle of the pandemic, and I feel very lucky that we were able to deliver and develop those vaccines. Now, at the same speed, we need to deliver those vaccines into people's arms. Now, as the American board guidance came in late last year, saying that we should not withhold those doses for pregnant women and for women that are breastfeeding, because there isn't any safety concern for them. But yet we have not tested them. So the right thing to do, it's actually to run those clinical studies, to run those trials with those patient populations that are more specific. And that's usually how it's done.
Right. And you point that out, even though the study is just getting underway, that both the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists and the CDC say pregnant women can get vaccinated. So what is your specific advice to expectant mothers right now who are still on the fence about the vaccine? Do you feel we already know enough about its safety for pregnant women to confidently suggest your patients who are pregnant get the vaccine?
It's a very complicated situation that folks need to navigate with their own private doctors, with their own primary doctors that understand their body and their particularities as well, whether they have an underlying condition, whether they are exposed to the virus in a more frequent way, whether they are working on an essential in-person jobs. So there isn't a one-size-fits-all response to this question, because we have not yet tested these in clinical studies, which for me, it's the gold standard on making those decisions. So again, for breastfeeding mothers, for pregnant women, I would recommend reaching out to their providers and have this heart-to-heart conversation. Is it okay for me to receive this vaccine right now, or should I wait for those clinical studies?
And doctor, now getting to the children, Pfizer and BioNTech also announced plans to study the vaccine in children ages 5 to 11. This is huge news, since the vaccine is currently not authorized for use to anyone under the age of 16 in the U.S. What can you tell us about this study?
So first, the vaccine is safe and effective for adults. There is no reason why we are concerned that it wouldn't be the same for children. But there is a better need for understanding of the implications of these vaccinations on children. And that's why you need those clinical studies. So again, maybe by the time that these studies are concluded, we would see that they perhaps would need one dose and then receive the second dose in a later time than the adults. But we still don't know. So it's important for drug makers to make those decisions based on science, based on clinical trials, running those clinical studies on children. It's very important. Although we know from the past year that children are not severely affected by this disease, we still need to protect them and immunize them. So I'm expecting to see, based on what Dr. Fauci said today at the White House press briefing, that by fall we will see some results on children that are 12 years old and older. And by the beginning of next year, the results for children that are under the age of 5.
And how do these tests on children work? I mean, obviously doctors need to get the parents' consent, but do the children also consent? I mean, they're minors, so it's a little bit trickier.
It's very tricky, and I think it will require patients, meaning children, parents, and providers, to have a heart-to-heart conversation. I think you'd be surprised by how smart these kids are, and they're very much aware. I think living in the era that we are living today of streaming and being online, they are exposed to the news as well. So I've come across a few kids lately, and they're pretty much aware of what's going on, and they are excited about getting the vaccine.
I know my son can't wait to get it. He's yes, they do. All right. Well, Dr. Leo Nissola, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.